Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the epic story, the powerful themes, and the wild historical inaccuracies of Mel Gibson's 1995 cinematic masterpiece, Braveheart. It's a sweeping, emotional story about freedom, rebellion, and sacrifice that left an absolutely massive cultural footprint. This film was a total phenomenon, winning 5 Academy Awards and inspiring millions with a single battle cry. Today, we're going to break down the spark of the rebellion, the ensuing war for freedom, the core themes the film wants us to take away, and finally, the rather massive historical fiction caveat. Part 1. The Spark of Rebellion, from peaceful farmer to vengeful rebel. To really understand William Wallace, we've got to look at his tragic beginnings. As a child, he loses his father and his brother, both killed by the English. But despite that profound trauma, Wallace returns to Scotland as a young man with super simple ambitions. He hopes only to farm the land and live quietly. He doesn't want to be a warrior or a leader. He just wants to be left alone to live his life.
But living quietly? Yeah, that becomes completely impossible thanks to the tyrannical King Edward I of England, better known as Longshanks. He institutes this brutal, ruthless decree called Prima Nocta. This literally gave English lords the first night rights to sleep with newlywed Scottish brides. It was just an awful weapon of subjugation. So, to avoid this horrific decree, Wallace secretly marries his childhood sweetheart, Marin.
But things escalate so fast here. The secret marriage is discovered when an English magistrate tries to assault Muron. When she fights back, tragically, she's publicly executed. This one horrific event acts as the ultimate catalyst for everything that follows. It instantly transforms Wallace's devastating, unimaginable grief into this blinding desire for revenge, sparking a full-blown national revolution. Moving on to Part 2, the War for Freedom, and uniting the clans against Longshanks. So, a deeply personal vendetta violently snowballs into the First War of Scottish independence. But how exactly does a single farmer fight an entire empire? Well, Wallace relies on a brilliant combination of unconventional guerrilla tactics and sheer fiery charisma. You see, Scotland at this time wasn't totally united. The clans were fractured and pretty hesitant to fight back against the overwhelming might of England. But Wallace manages to unite them, stepping up to outsmart the heavy English cavalry using real ingenuity rather than just brute force. And nothing illustrates this tactical genius better than the Battle of Stirling Bridge. It is a classic David and Goliath scenario. Wallace commands a vastly outnumbered peasant army, yet through his leadership and cunning tactics, they completely annihilate the supposedly superior, heavily armed English cavalry. It's just a massive, grassroots victory against the tyrant Longshanks. Now think about the sheer emotional weight of what Wallace says right before that battle. They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom. We all know it, right? It isn't just a cool movie quote. It's a battle cry that perfectly nails the central thesis of the entire film. It defines exactly what is at stake for these people. But as we move into the latter half of the story, things take a really dark turn. Tragically, Wallace is betrayed. And the kicker? He isn't betrayed by the common people, but by wavering Scottish nobles who totally sell him out. He's captured by the English and sentenced to a brutal public execution for high treason. And even in his agonizing final moments, he's offered a choice, a quick death if he just pleads for mercy. Instead, he refuses to submit, using his literal last breath to roar the word freedom. So Wallace loses his life, but his death definitely isn't in vain. His unbreakable spirit and ultimate sacrifice turn him into a powerful martyr. And it's exactly this martyrdom that inspires Robert the Bruce and those previously cowardly Scottish nobles to finally get their act together, unite properly, and lead Scotland to true independence. Wallace basically planted the seed that grew into a free Scotland. Which brings us to Part 3, the core themes of Braveheart: liberty, corruption, and love. If we look beneath all the action and sword fights, the script creates a really sharp contrast between the classes. On one side, you have the common people, represented by Wallace. Their fight is pure and righteous. They simply want self-determination. But on the flip side, you have the ruling class, the nobles. They're portrayed as cynical, constantly wavering, and entirely self-serving. Their only real concern is protecting their own wealth, their lands, and their titles, which, as we saw, leads directly to political corruption and betrayal. Digging a bit deeper into these themes, the film argues strongly that liberty has to be pursued at all costs. Basically, a life lived without self-determination just isn't worth living. And what's really crucial to understand is that Wallace isn't out there seeking political power or a crown for himself. His entire crusade is propelled by love as a catalyst, specifically his devotion to his murdered wife, Muran. That incredibly pure motivation cements the overarching message that liberty is worth absolutely any sacrifice.
And finally, part 4, the historical fiction caveat, or when Hollywood rewrites history. Okay, so we've built up this incredible romantic legend, but now it's time to abruptly pull the rug out. Because historically speaking, the film takes some absolutely massive liberties. For starters, the Scottish didn't even wear those iconic belted kilts until hundreds of years later. And the blue woad face paint? Yeah, that was a dead trend from the Roman era. Then there's his romance with Princess Isabella, which is historically impossible unless Wallace was somehow dating a toddler living over in France. Oh, and perhaps the most glaring one, the Battle of Stirling Bridge, the big central victory of the movie, was fought on an open field. They literally forgot the bridge. So as an accurate history lesson, it completely fails. But honestly, despite these massive historical liberties, the film undeniably succeeds. And why is that? Well, because it operates as a cinematic myth, not a documentary. Every anachronism, every dramatized speech, every historical tweak, it was all meticulously designed by the filmmakers to make us, the audience, actually feel the profound emotional weight of fighting for independence. Which leaves us with this final, pretty provocative thought to take away. When a cinematic myth resonates so deeply with the human spirit and moves millions of people to understand the value of freedom and sacrifice, does it really need historical accuracy to tell an emotional truth? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this gives you a whole new perspective the next time you hear that famous cry for freedom.